Alright guys, welcome back to this Mitsurugi combo video tutorial. Like always, I will first have this introduction here, then we are going to take a look at all the combos. I have the Habakiri combo for you, then I have the Aramasa combo for you, and then also the prayers combo. These are the best starters. There's also the pre-preparation of rites, but it's basically the same as having the Amino Habakiri no Mitsurugi. I will show you the combos. I will not talk or read over the cards in the combo part of the video, but I will have a deck list part at the end of the video where I will go over every card. I will recommend to you a deck list that you can play in Master Duel, and we will also read over all the cards so that you understand what they are exactly doing and why we are playing them. So now we are starting with this Amino Habakiri no Mitsurugi combo. If you have any questions concerning this guide, then let me know in the comments. Otherwise, if you like the video, please consider subscribing and take a thumbs up and the notification bell. So we are going to start with Amino. We can reveal once per duel to summon a reptile, and then we have to tribute one reptile. In this case, we are summoning the Sagi and tributing the Sagi, and then Sagi in the graveyard, because it was tributed, can activate to grab a Mitsurugi spell. You want to grab the ritual spell that can once summon from the hand, once summon from the deck. Now we want to summon from the hand, and we will use material from the deck. This time around we will use the Mitsurugi no Mikitu Kusanagi and Aramasa. So Kusanagi, Aramasa, use them to summon the Habakiri from the hand. There comes Habakiri, and now we have chain links here. Chain link 1 is going to be our Kusanagi, targeting our Mitsurugi ritual to add it back to the hand, and chain link 2 will be our Aramasa. So note here, all of our three base Mitsurugi monsters have the ability, when they are tributed, we can add something either from grave, a spell, or a monster from the deck. So we will get back the ritual, and then we will also get our search with the Aramasa for a Mitsurugi monster. We are chain blocking this, the 1-2, because the effect to get back the ritual, so that we can ritual summon from the deck, which we have not yet done. Out of these two effects we have not yet used, and this is the more important one. So we are grabbing with our Aramasa the Futsu no Mitama Mitsurugi and grab back the ritual spell. Now activate the ritual spell we will summon from the deck now by tributing our Amino Habakiri from the field for our boss monster, so to say, the Amino Mitsurugi. And now we can activate in the graveyard, because it was tributed for this ritual summon, the Habakiri, and it will add to our hand any Mitsurugi card, and this time around the prayers, and then will special summon itself. Sorry, not the prayers, the Mitsurugi mirror. The Mitsurugi mirror is also able to ritual summon, but only from the graveyard and from the hand, and only with stuff that we have here, not from the deck. The Mitsurugi mirror we can now activate, attributing our Amino to get the Futsu from the hand to the field, and then because it was tributed, we can also trigger the Amino. It can now search any Mitsurugi card and will be special summoned. We are searching the Mitsurugi prayers here. Now we can activate Mitsurugi prayers. We want to also tribute something. When you activate this card, you can also tribute one reptile monster in your hand, and then you can activate both these effects, add one Mitsurugi monster from your deck to your hand and take 800 damage. Then you can special summon a Mitsurugi monster from hand or graveyard, but it cannot attack directly. We want to use both the effects. That is why we have summoned here. We are going to add with our prayers the Aramasa, and then we are going to pay 800 to summon back, in this case, the Kusanagi. Could have also summoned back one of the other ones. It doesn't really matter. We will use them as level 4s basically. And now in the new chain, because Futsu was tributed, we can search once again a card, Mitsurugi card, to our hand, and he will be special summoned. And also the Mitsurugi mirror can be put back to the deck, because once this was in the graveyard, we have ritual summoned either this guy, or the Futsu. In this case, we summoned the Futsu. That's why we can put the mirror back into our deck to use it later on, which is nice. We can also chain block the Futsu, because obviously it could have been Ash Blossomed here or Ghost Belt. It can be Ash Blossom because you are going to search a card to the hand, and it can be Ghost Belt because it revives itself, right? So now we are getting the Futsu back to our field, but before we are going to search. This is, by the way, always how this works. You're going to search first, and then you're going to special summon, which is why if you're under Draw and Lockbird, you cannot special summon these guys here, because you cannot search. You have to search first, then special summon. If you can't search, you can also not special summon. This time around, we are searching the counter trap Mitsurugi Great Purification. Now we can normal summon our Aramasa, and now we have a lot of different rank 4s that we can use here, but it makes sense in my opinion to make the Gallant Granite here. There are other options that I will talk over in the deck profile part, because now we can detach a material, doesn't really matter which one, to add a Nibiru to our hand which is obviously an additional very good disruption. And then we can use the Gallant Granite and the Amino to make an IP Masquerena. You might be wondering, why are we using the boss monster of this archetype and putting it into the graveyard? This is because you want to have this in the graveyard. The idea is to revive it back with our Futsu, because Futsu says whenever our opponent special summons a monster, then in the next chain we can target a reptile monster in our graveyard and special summon it. And the Amino, our boss monster, says if it gets special summoned, it basically does Raigeki, destroys all monsters our opponent controls. It also has the effect that when our opponent activates a card or effect, we can activate this effect, and then our opponent either has to discard a card or the card or effect he activated will be negated. But yeah, this is why we want him in the graveyard, the boss monster, because we want to resummon him on our opponent's turn so that he can be a Raigeki on the field. Now we set the trap, and this is the end board we have right here. So let's see at what we have here. We have the IP Masquerena, which you can either use this body here or any other body that you will get with the Futsu, because Futsu can basically get back any body in the graveyard. Futsu is crazy in that way, because Futsu, once again, every turn your opponent special summons something, he can special summon a reptile from the grave. You can special back the Kusanagi, you can special back the Aramasa, you obviously want to special back the Amino to destroy the field at a certain time, and you can get back the Saji. All of those are bodies, which means you will basically not be being killed, but all of them can also trigger. So for example, the Kusanagi can trigger to add either the prayers or the ritual or any other Mitsurugi from the graveyard to the hand. The Aramasa will trigger in order to add a Mitsurugi spell to the hand, and a monster, and the Saji will trigger in order to add a Mitsurugi spell to the hand, or a trap. You could also add the trap. So we can summon a lot with this guy here. We have this clear the entire field with the Amino. We have Amino's negation effect, which forces the opponent to basically discard a card. We have the Nibiru. Amino also, this is a very important effect. He basically does nothing on the field, but monsters our opponent controls loses 800 attack, which makes it even harder to battle into IP and battle into the Futsu, because it has 3-4 defense. And then we also have the Mitsurugi Great Purification. You can only use one of these effects once per turn. When your opponent activates a card or effect, tribute one level 5 or higher reptile monster, negate that activation effect, not activation, and if you do, destroy that card. We can also, but not in this turn, if we use the first effect, we can also banish this card from our graveyard, target one reptile monster in our graveyard and special summon it, and then we tribute another monster. Note here that every time that we tribute any of the Mitsurugi monsters, they will be activated in order to either search with the base monsters, or in order to search anything with the ritual monsters. They can search anything, monsters, spells, traps, and they can resummon this in themselves. So this is the difference comparing the base monsters with the ritual boss monsters, so to say. So this you can activate at any point, tributing, for example, the Futsu, because obviously Futsu will then in the graveyard trigger because it was tributed. Then you can add any Mitsu card from your deck to your hand and resummon the Futsu. So you can see that this, what we have on the field here, even though it might not look like much, remember we have done this with one card, so we have several interruptions and we have a lot of follow-up to through the Futsu, summoning back our guys here, which gives us a lot of bodies, IP into SP, but also because all of them that we summon here from the graveyard and also the tribute from the trap will add us so many cards to the hand, so you will get back the turn with most likely, I don't know, 5 or 6 cards in the hands, and you still have this Nibiru as a foolproof for whenever something happens that is unexpected or your opponent is able to actually break through this board. Let's assume we are starting with the Mitsurugi Prayers here, which can add a Mitsurugi monster to the hand, and could also, if we tribute a reptile monster, special summon a reptile monster from hand or graveyard. Obviously we have nothing to tribute here. You definitely want to do this in the draw phase because of the quick play spell, and this plays around Jordan Lockbird, then one of the biggest problems of this deck. You can activate this now to add a Mitsurugi monster. We're going to add the Aramasa, which when it being special, normal, special summoned or tributed, can search as a Mitsurugi monster. We are normal summoning him, adding the Amino. This is basically what you always want to do, the Habakiri. You always want to use this one to add the Habakiri. This is why we are also playing 3 of this, so that we can basically always have our Habakiri, because Habakiri is the starter for the entire deck. You could also obviously have the ritual spell already in the hand or something like this, but this is basically the best starter. Then we are going to activate the Habakiri once again to summon the Saji like last turn, tribute the Saji, and then Saji in the graveyard can activate. We are once again grabbing the ritual activating the ritual, summoning the Habakiri from the hand. This time around we are using the Kusanagi. Kusanagi is basically what you always want to use because Kusanagi can add you back the ritual so that you can use the second effect of the ritual to summon from the deck. But this time around, because we already have used Aramasa's effect to search, so we don't really need to tribute him here from the deck, we can tribute from the deck the Night Sword Serpent. And Night Sword Serpent says if this card is sent to the graveyard by a card effect, we can special summon it, but it will be banished once leaving the field, which if you use it for an XYZ summon isn't really that impactful. So we are going Chaining 1, Kusanagi target the ritual spell once again, and then we can chain block it with the Serpent, Chaining 2. So this is nice because now we have 2 level 4 bodies already. We are going to summon the Serpent here, and we are going to add back our Mitsurugi ritual to the hand, which we can still summon from the deck. Make an XYZ summon to go King of the Feral Imps. This is an older card, but very good in Mitsurugi. Once per turn, you can detach one material from this card, add 1 Raptor monster from your deck to your hand. This is also how you use your Ryziel stuff to bridge into Mitsurugi, because you can make this with the Ryziel monsters, and then you can activate this effect to get the Habakiri to the hand, and he can start the entire play that we have basically just seen in the first combo, and we are also seeing right now. Now we are going to detach here the Serpent. Once again, it goes to the graveyard, not being banished because it was XYZ material to add the Futso. What we can now do is activate our Mitsu Ritual in order to summon the boss monster from the deck by using the Futso from the hand. So here comes our boss monster, and now because Futso was tributed, we can activate him at any Mitsurugi card and he can be special summoned. Oh, sorry, no. He will not be special summoned because we have not yet properly summoned him, obviously, right? Because if you don't properly summon something like an extra deck monster or a ritual monster and it just goes to the graveyard, it cannot be special summoned. This is like rule of the game. But it doesn't matter because this time around we're adding the Mitsurugi Mirror, which gives us the ability to ritual summon from hand or from the graveyard. Activate the Mirror. We have not yet used the Arminos effect to get tributed and then search something and be special back. So this is why we are using him right now. The Habakiri. So you always basically, neither have we used this effect, but we are using the Habakiri now. You always basically want to tribute the ritual monster that has not yet been tributed, basically, you know. And we are going to summon the Futsu from the hand. Now we can trigger the Habakiri in order to grab to our hand the Mitsurugi Great Purification, and we can then summon Habakiri once again. Now we can go ahead and go link these off into a Dynamondo. Obviously, this is just an additional or an alternative ending. You could have also done this and gone into a Masquerina here. I think the Masquerina is better, personally, way better, but I just want to show you this different option here. Dynamondo can obviously also shuffle one of your ritual monsters from the graveyard back into the deck in order to spin one card from your opponent's field back into the deck, but always check that you have something to actually shuffle back, because in this case we only have the Armino in the graveyard and we want to keep him in the graveyard, obviously. With the Dynamondo play instead of the IP Masquerina, you have the ability to quick effect, get this one to the graveyard, and then at any point basically summon the Armino. I think this is a bit redundant since we already have the food. So yes, this is more flexible, but this is also prone to being caught by the grave, which is not that great. Now we can set our Mitsurugi Great Purification and pass over the turn. We basically have the same endboard like we have before, but there is like the Dynamondo instead of the IP Masquerina. Once again, you can just do it the other way around, make the Masquerina here, but the idea is basically the same. And now let's see what we can do with our Aramasa. You have basically already seen this, so you should have understood how this combo works by now, because it kind of is always the same with a few caveats. We are going to normal summon Aramasa, activate the effect to grab the, once again, Habakiri, and Habakiri activate to Saji, Saji into our graveyard, Saji is going to activate here to grab to the hand the Mitsu Ritual. I just want to show you also in this combo a few different ways that you can go about doing things. And now we can activate the Ritual. Once again, we summon from the hand here, and we are summoned the Habakiri. We have once again used our Aramasa already, and we have used the Saji already, and obviously we are going to use the Kusanagi basically always. So here once again we are going to send the Serpent. You go chaining 1 Kusanagi, target the Ritual spell, chaining to the Serpent, which gives us another level 4 body. So it's kind of close to the other combo. I will just play it a bit differently. The difference here is that we have not yet used the Mitsurugi prayers. Summon the Serpent and grab back the Ritual spell to the hand. Now Ritual spell, we are going to tribute the Habakiri in order to summon our boss monster. Now Habakiri can activate in order to add any Mitsu monster or Mitsu card to the hand and be special summoned. Here's our prayers now. Now we can go into our Gallant Granite, and here's where it differs a bit, right? You can use the Gallant Granite here in this combo line, grab Nibiru. This will basically mean that you cannot go for the counter trap here, because if you wanted to go for the counter trap, you would use this these two bodies here not to go into Gallant Granite, but you would go once again into the King of the Feral Imps, and you would get the Futsu to the hand, the other ritual monster. Then you would use your prayers in order to tribute the Futsu, and this basically gives you one more ritual monster to tribute and search. You will see what I mean in a second here. So we have grabbed the Nibiru here. Now we activate prayers, going to tribute the boss monster to add the Futsu, and then boss monster, because it was tributed, can now so firstly we can pay and summon this Kusanagi. You can summon this Kusanagi, you don't need to, because we don't actually need this body, but you could use it as protection if you wanted to. I guess it doesn't really make a big difference. And then we can trigger in the graveyard the boss monster to grab the mirror and special summon the boss monster back to our field. And here is where we are basically missing one of these searches, because they have already been tributed, both of them, to search something, and our Futsu will now be the last thing that we will ritual summon, but we don't have the ability to tribute summon him anymore, so he can't search. So he would be the one searching the counter trap, but because we have used the Gallant Granite and not the King of the Feral Imps, this is where we basically lost this one search, right? This time around, going Mitsumiro and just tributing the Habakiri, because we don't need him. We can also summon him back with the Futsu next turn, and then we can use two bodies here in order to go into Masquerina. You don't need to use the Kusanagi here, could also just use the Gallant Granite. Keep in mind that all of the Mitsurugi base monsters here, so Kusanagi as well as Saji and also Aramasa, have this hidden effect that if another reptile monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, we can tribute them instead. Note that they once again tribute here, so if they have not yet activated their effect this turn, this tributation would once again give you the ability to trigger them in the graveyard. But what you can do here is you can basically protect your important monsters like the Futsu with your little reptile monsters. So there's also something to be said about keeping this on the field as an additional protection in order if this would get destroyed, instead of this Gallant Granite here, right? But once again, we are on the same endboard, but minus the trap basically, but we have this time around the Nibiru in our hand. Now I will show you the deck list and also talk about very interesting, like basically an in-depth dive into the deck that I didn't do here in the combo part of the video. Okay, and here is how I think you should play this deck. Definitely play this deck at 40 cards, because the biggest problem with this deck is bricking, and unfortunately, and this is really annoying, honestly, in Master Duel we are missing a lot of the pots, so decks that lack consistency have a problem in Master Duel. Normally we would want to run multiple Pot of Extravagance, 3 Pot of Extravagance if we could, because we don't really need our extra deck. Yeah, we do something with our extra deck on the turn. You have seen this in the combo video, but we don't need it, so if it gets banished, it doesn't really matter. Unfortunately, we don't have a Pot of Prosperity, and we only have 1 Extravagance, so we are missing a bit on consistency. This is a bit sad, but it is what it is. So we are playing the Night Sword Serpent here. You have seen why we are using this. This is an additional body. If you do not need your tribute searches early on for the Aramasa, for the Saji, or for the Kusanagi you basically always use, but this is just producing an additional body. So you have to think about your combo line and if you need this additional body. We are playing one Kusanagi, and once again you have seen what this does, but if this card is normal special summoned or if it's attributed, we can target one Mitsu card in graveyard or banishment actually, which is very important, and we can add it to the hand. And then once again this has the protection effect. The Saji does the same thing, but if this normal special summoned or attributed, we can add a Mitsu spell trap from deck to hand, and then the Aramasa is adding a monster from deck to hand, a Mitsu monster, when it's being normal specialed or tributed. And once again, remember, a lot of these cards tribute. The ritual Mitsurugi ritual tributes, this mirror tributes, this one tributes, this one tributes, the Magatama tributes, this one we will read in a second here. So basically everything here tributes. Note here that also Nibiru tributes. So if you have some of your effects still live and your opponent Nibiru's you, so for example you have your Amino on the field and he has not yet been tributed, and then your opponent goes Nibiru, then you can obviously just summon him back because he was tributed. So keep this in mind when playing around Nibiru. Then, though I think it's not really super relevant here. Then we are playing 2 Amino, just because if one gets banished, then we definitely want a second one, because yeah, it's a good target for Bestials, it's a good target for Called By, but one of the most important cards that you want to have in your hand if you can. In our combos we did not, but obviously we are not going to play with only one card, but with 5 cards. One of the most important cards to combo with the Amino is the Mitsurugi Prayers, because it is a quick play spell. So let's say, for example, you use your Futsu in order to summon the Amino from the graveyard. Then your opponent go ahead and use the Called By, which we can play twice in Master Duel, which makes this deck already a bit weaker. Called By is very good against this deck, but what we could then do if we have the Prayers here is just chain Prayers, because it's quick play spell, and then we can basically tribute another ritual monster, another reptile monster, or we cannot tribute it. Depends on what you want to do here. If you tribute, you can use both effects. If you don't just want to use the second one, then it's also fine. Then we would just take 800 damage, and then we can special summon a Mitsu monster from our graveyard. So we can dodge the Called By and the Bestial by using our Mitsu Prayers here. Then we have our Habakiri. So just let's read over the guy, because you have only seen him in every combo line, but we haven't read him. You can only ritual summon all of them with Mitsuru Ritual, they say, by the way, and the mirror can also summon them. Just to quickly mention this here. Monsters your opponent controls lose 800 attack. This is very relevant. Keep this in mind. Summon this with the Futsu early on if you can, back from the graveyard, so that opponent's cards lose attack points. And then the second effect, we have already used them all the time. You can reveal this card in your hand, a special summon one Mitsu monster from deck, then tribute one monster you control. So you don't need to tribute the monster that you have summoned. Like we have always basically summoned the Sargi. You could also tribute something else if you have something else. But the advantage is of tributing, and this is why we also have done it, is that this then triggers in the graveyard, as you have seen, and obviously this can then not be Infinite Impermanence or Effect Vadered. All in all, Infinite Impermanence and Effect Vader are just not great against this deck, but for example, Droll and Lockbird is, I've already talked about this. This is also a good point to use your Maxi or your Fuvalos, because this is obviously a summon from the deck, or just in general, Maxi would obviously give you draw every time that there is a special summon. And note here that we can only use the second effect once per duel, which doesn't even say so on the card. Oh no, it says here the second effect can only be used once per duel, which definitely balances this crazy strong card out. So this reveal effect to summon you can only use once per duel, so keep that in mind. And then obviously if this card is distributed, we can add a Mitsurugi card from deck to our hand and special summon. All of the big monsters have this second effect here, this if tributed effect. And once again, like I mentioned in the combo guide, if you are under Droll and Lockbird, you cannot special summon these from your graveyard, because you cannot search. You would need to search and then special summon. This is why Droll is very effective here. And then we have the Futsu. We can also quickly read him. If your opponent special summons a monster except during the damage step, we can target a reptile monster in our graveyard except Futsu. Doesn't matter, because we only play one, and then we special summon it. So this is one of the strongest cards, beside obviously our Raigeki boy here. I guess we have not read him, so let's quickly do this. If this card is special summoned, you can destroy a monster your opponent controls. We want to summon it on the opponent's turn, and it doesn't even say ritual summoned, it says special summoned. And when your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, we can activate this effect. Our opponent needs either discard one card or that effect is negated. So let's, for example, say they activate an Infinite Impermanence on our Amino, because we want to Raigeki the entire field, and then we activate the second effect here, and then either our opponent discards a card from the hand or the Infinite Impermanence will be negated. Note here that if your opponent has no cards in the hand, then it just will be negated because he can't discard. So if your opponent has no cards, then this is just an omni negate, not a please discard a card opponent, right? They choose the card, the card discarded. That's something to keep in mind. But obviously, this is a very good card in order to cost your opponent resources. In theory, if you summon him on your first turn and then activate this discard effect because your opponent activates a hand trap, this will cost him one card from the hand. And then once again on his turn, because he obviously needs to play, he will need to discard another card. So this card does not only Raigeki the entire field, but also costs your opponent 2 hand cards, which is crazy. And then we have the Futsu once again. He special summons every time your opponent special summons. Then you can target one of your reptiles in the graveyard and special summon them. You want to special summon all of them during your opponent's turn. This is kind of like Malice, where Malice produces a lot of bodies on the opponent's turn so that it can't be killed. This is the same thing basically here. Then we have the card that we have not yet seen, but you can also add this to your hand with the search effects, obviously, but maybe you just hard draw it. It's Mitsurugi Magatama, a quick play spell. During the main phase, activate one of these effects, tribute one reptile monster, then target one face-up card your opponent controls, destroy it. So this is a destruction that we need to tribute for. Or we can also ritual summon one Mitsurugi ritual monster from your hand by tributing monsters you control whose total level equal or exceed its level. So we need to tribute from the field here. Obviously, this tribute effect is normally not what you are going to use. You're normally going to use this destruction effect here. Then we have our Mitsurugi ritual. This card can be used to ritual summon any reptile ritual monster. So not only Mitsurugi cards, by the way. Activate one of these effects and then you can use both of them. So we quickly read them because we have used them already, but they are important to understand. We can ritual summon one reptile ritual monster from our deck by tributing reptile monsters from our hand or field whose total levels equal. So we need to tribute reptiles first and foremost. This is important. And here we can summon from the deck, which is basically branded fusion. So it took a branded fusion in order to break ritual finally. Or we can ritual summon one reptile monster from our hand by tributing up to 2 reptile monsters from hand, deck, or field, so all of them here, and once again whose total level equals the level of the ritual monster. So we can once ritual summon from the hand and then once again in the same turn ritual summon from the deck. Super strong here, and obviously all of them can ritual summon the other ones because all of them are level 8s and 2 level 4s would also make a level 8, right? Then we have Mitsurugi Mirror. We have already used this in order to tribute summon basically from the hand or the graveyard, and then if this is in the graveyard and do ritual summon either Ameno, Habakiri, or Futso, then you can also put this back to the deck. Then we have the Great Purification, which we have already read. Super good card, but you just want to search it. And then your Mitsurugi Prayers, which is one of the craziest cards. You can dodge stuff with it like I already explained. So we definitely want to play it thrice. This is obviously also one of our starters. So the Aramasa would start on its own. The Habakiri would start on its own. And also the Prayers. The other ones not. This is why we are playing them at 1. So the Saji could only search the Prayers. But from there on out, we would have a problem because we can't then search the ritual, so this doesn't really work. So our starters are the Aramasa, Habakiri, and the Prayers, plus our great pre-preparation of rites, but we come to this in a second here. Then we are playing the Ash Blossoms. I think this makes sense. We want to definitely not get Maxid, not get Fuward. Ash Blossoms is just so great. You can also Ash Blossom your opponent, Mitsurugi stuff here. Then obviously 2 Maxis, they are broken. Definitely want to play 2 Called Bys here and 1 Cross Out. This is why we are playing this Droll and Lockbird, so we can cross out it in theory because this is our biggest enemy. And I think in the future format that comes now, we will see a lot of Droll because Ryzel will also be super strong. Ryzel Mitsurugi will most likely be the strongest deck in the room, I think, so we will see a lot of Drolls. We do not want to play Drolls ourselves, so we don't want to play 3 Drolls, I think, because if we use Droll on our opponent's turn, then we also cannot use our, for example, Ameno, Habakiris, or Futsu's effect to summon back and search. So we would hinder ourselves with Droll on the opponent's turn. This is why we only need to or want to cross out this guy. Then we have pre-preparation of rites, and the Mitsurugi Mirror, which came together in the second wave with the Ameno Habakiri, is actually not the greatest card, but what makes it so great is the fact that you can search it with pre-preparation of rites. It says add 1 ritual spell from your deck to your hand and add 1 ritual monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand whose name is mentioned on that ritual spell. So the problem with the Mitsurugi ritual was that it doesn't mention any of these guys here. So this was the problem. And then they introduced Mitsurugi Mirror, which is actually not the great card in general, but on this card it has these names, right? There's Ameno, Murakumo no Mitsurugi, Futsu, and there's also Habakiri. So all of them are mentioned here, which means we can now use pre-preparation of rites to search all the time the Mitsurugi Mirror and then our Habakiri for the start, or obviously anything else if you already have this. So this is another starter of ours. So not only do we have these 9 starters here, but we also have 12 starters, and then you can, I guess, count the Pot of Extravagance as a starter. Drawing 2 is nice. We can play Dominus Inputs because we are a dark deck and we definitely want to. This card is insane. Then 1 Nibiru to search with our Gallant Granite. I think this is very nice. We can just use these level 4 bodies to do something useful, especially now that Baguska is gone. And then I have decided to just play 2 Infinite Permanences here because I think they are strong, but you can replace them with anything, talents, whatever you want. Then we are playing 1 King of the Pharaoh Imps. This is great. You can just add a Raptor monster from deck to hand. It's way more important than the Ryzel deck, but we also want to play it here. You have seen this in the combo. We are playing a Starsland, a Zeus use because we have XYZ stuff here, 2 Dynamondos. I think the effect to just make this guy shuffle back one of your ritual monsters from the graveyard and then spin a card from your opponent's field back into the deck is the more important one. But once again, just remember that you just want to keep your Amino and your Futsu in the graveyard because you want to resummon them every turn. You have seen this together with the Little Knight and then the Gallant Granite. You can also make a Dugaris, draw more cards. You can play a Tornado Dragon. This is an ultra rare, so you don't need to play Tornado Dragon. You can also play anything else here. I like a Dark. We can maybe play against opponents' Mitsurugi strategies. There will not be only the pure Mitsurugi deck, but also Rise Mitsurugi. There is Orcus Mitsurugi. There's a lot of Mitsurugi, so I think Dark makes sense. Then we are playing the full armored Utopic Grey Lancer. If we have an XYZ rank 4, we can overlay him or make him by discarding a spell card, and he can attack twice basically. We can also in the battle phase negate all opponents' monsters, so he can help us finish a game basically. You will most likely never use him, but he's a super rare, so you can play him. Evil Storm Exito Knight, you know from Ryziel already. I think this is a must play if your opponent controls more cards than you do in hand and field. You can activate this, clear the entire board of your opponent, and then play the game from there. Obviously it's a bit harder to make here with the Mitsurugi deck than it was with the Ryziel deck, but I still think you should play this. Then there's a Light Dragon Ignis that you can play. Once again, this is an ultra rare, so you can play something else if you want to. And then there's number 90 Galaxy Eyes Photon Lord, which if you on the end pot, for example, have your Amino together with, I don't know, let's say the Habakiri, then you could also go ahead and just overlay them for the Photon Lord. Keep in mind though that for the Photon Lord's negation effect, you want to detach the Amino because you want him back in the graveyard. And then there's just a tech that I'm suggesting here that you could also go for to make it a bit more consistent. The Manjo of the 10,000 Hands. When this card is normal or flip summoned, you can add one ritual monster or one ritual spell from deck to hand. So you could add the Habakiri here. So if you find that your deck is a bit inconsistent because we don't really have a lot of normal summons, we have these 5 guys here, and normally you just only want to normal summon the Aramasa basically. I guess sometimes the Saji depending on your hand. So we could definitely go for more normal summons. So if you wanted to, you could put in some of these. I don't even know whether I would put in 3, but let's say we want to not play the Makatama maybe and want one more consistency piece, then we could just go for this Manjo of the 10,000 Hands, for example, to have one more starter. But this is something that you have to try for yourself and find out if the deck is consistent enough for you, but this is also an option. So this is the end of the Mitsurugi guide. If you have any more questions, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, please consider subscribing, hitting a thumbs up and the notification bell, and you will find videos for the other decks coming out on this channel also.